The first day, I woke up as the real heir. My biological parents were sitting right across from me, their eyes fixed on me like spectators watching two beasts in a pit. They signaled that I could start the competition against the fake heir sitting opposite me. But I literally worked myself to death in my previous life. That night, the fake heir, Dustin Clark, found me and shoved a $5 million card across the table, his voice tight. Take the money and never come back. I looked at the faint redness around his eyes, a telltale sign of tension, and my internal alarm bells went off. Something was wrong. Very wrong. This money was too little. I pushed the card back with a blank expression. He panicked, as expected, grinding his teeth and increasing the offer to $10 million. I smiled. I packed up and fled that night, bought all the top-of-the-line appliances for my foster parents in the countryside, and then turned around and bought out an entire hillside to raise 300 piglets. I thought my life of easy living had finally begun. That is, until a month later, when a flashy red Ferrari got stuck in the mud right in front of my pig pen. Dustin Clark and his female CEO admirer, dressed in bespoke suits and an evening gown, were being chased and vigorously nudged by my pig king, Patches. The long dining table felt as cold as a coffin. My name is Ethan Vance. Yesterday, I was a corporate drone who dropped dead at my desk. Today, I was the true heir to the Clark family. Sitting directly across from me was the fake heir, Dustin Clark. The fingers gripping his knife and fork were trembling slightly. In the center of the table sat my biological parents. Father, Marcus Clark, cleared his throat, his voice utterly devoid of warmth. Ethan, we know you've suffered out there all these years. He paused, his gaze sweeping between the two of us. From this day forward, you and Dustin are both sons of the Clark family. The company and the estate go to the most capable. My mother gracefully dabbed the corner of her mouth beside him, adding, "That's right, fair competition." Her eyes held undisguised amusement, like watching two roosters about to clash. I looked down, silently cutting into the steak on my plate. In my last life, I lived on a 996 schedule, working from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week, and finally collapsed over my desk. And now, another fight? Do you guys want to cultivate some kind of venomous creature? Dustin's face went even paler. His eyes were filled with wariness and fear as he looked at me. I ignored him and focused on eating. This steak was cooked medium, juicy, and infinitely better than the pre-packaged lunchboxes I ate in my previous life. The meal concluded in an atmosphere thick with coldness and strangeness. My parents were clearly dissatisfied with my uninterested attitude. The butler led me to the guest room, which was 10 times larger than the studio apartment I used to rent and 10 times emptier. All I wanted was sleep. In the dead of night, there was a violent pounding on my door. Dustin burst in. He had changed into casual clothes, but his entire body was still coiled tight, like an overtaut bowstring. He locked the door behind him, as if afraid of being overheard. With a snap, he slapped a bank card onto the table. "There's $5 million here." His voice was kept low, laced with a tremor. "Take the money, leave this place, and never show your face again." I looked at the card, then looked at him. The corners of his eyes were red from the tension. My heart dropped. Something felt off. This payment was insultingly low. Was the identity of a Clark family heir only worth $5 million? Was he paying off a beggar? I remained silent, simply extending a finger to push the card back across the table. The movement was gentle, but Dustin's expression changed instantly. "What's the meaning of this?" His voice abruptly rose, then was instantly suppressed, carrying a hint of frantic agitation. Leaning back in the chair, I spoke slowly and deliberately. "You think the identity of a Clark family heir is only worth $5 million? My tone was flat, precisely puncturing his carefully constructed composure. He had fallen for it, just as I expected. He thought I was ambitious and had returned to fight him for the fortune. His face flushed from pale to ashen, his lips trembling. "Don't push it too far." I laughed once, said nothing, and just watched him quietly. Sometimes, silence carries more pressure than any words. The fear in his eyes was almost spilling over, the extreme panic of losing his current life and status. I silently counted down in my head. 3, 2, 1, $8 million. He squeezed the words out from between his teeth, as if using the last of his strength. "That's my limit." I stood up, making a move as if to walk out, letting out a soft chuckle. "It seems we have nothing more to discuss. Good night." That single soft laugh completely shattered his psychological defenses. "Wait." He grabbed my arm from behind, his voice laced with pleading. $10 million. I seriously don't have any more. This is all my savings from over the years, please." I stopped and turned around. "Deal." I reluctantly took the card, coolly tossing out one last line. "Remember your word, and don't bother me again." With that, I turned and left, not sparing him another glance. The moment I closed the door, the smile on my face could no longer be suppressed. It was practically stretching to my ears. 10 million. What a stroke of luck. This was a seed fund dropped straight from the heavens. I immediately opened my phone and booked the earliest train ticket back to the countryside. I didn't want to spend another second in this cold, suffocating place. The next morning before dawn broke, I slipped out of the Clark mansion with my old backpack. As I sat on the train, pulling away from the city, the Clark household exploded over my disappearance. The butler reported, his voice trembling, "Sir, ma'am, young Master Ethan's room is empty. He's gone." Marcus Clark threw the newspaper. He was holding onto the floor in anger. The nerve. He's trying to play hard to get with me. My mother also frowned. I knew it. Someone raised in the boondocks can never be truly sophisticated. They only resort to cheap tricks like this. Only Dustin stood aside, too guilty to look up. He feared my return with a vengeance. Yet he vaguely felt that perhaps I had genuinely taken the money and run. Outside the train window, the towering skyscrapers retreated, eventually giving way to rolling fields. I took a deep breath, feeling a sense of freedom I had never known before. To hell with the infighting of the rich. This old man was going back to the village to chill. Train to bus to a rickety truck. After bouncing around for over 10 hours, I finally returned to the small mountain village where I was born and raised. Under the great locust tree at the village entrance stood two familiar figures. It was my dad, Jack Stone, and my mom, Susan Stone. Their skin was dark from working outdoors, their faces etched with the passing years. But when they saw me, they smiled brighter than the sun. "Little E is home." Mom hurried over, taking my backpack. She chided me gently. "You kid, you didn't even call to say you were coming. Look how thin you are. You must not have been eating right out there." Dad followed behind, speaking little, just smiling broadly and reaching out to lift me onto his shoulders like he did when I was a kid. I quickly stopped him. "Dad, I'm a grown man now. I can walk." Looking at them, my nose stung with emotion. This was family. Back home, it was still the same clay brick house I'd lived in for decades, the walls covered in my old report cards. Mom and Dad pushed me to the table, serving me steaming hot food, constantly piling meat onto my plate. "So, when you found your real parents in the city, how were things? Were they good to you?" Mom asked cautiously. I shoveled a mouthful of rice, mumbling, "They were fine, and I won the lottery. I made a little windfall." As I said that, I pulled out the $10 million card. "Dad, Mom, there's money in here. You guys don't have to work so hard anymore." They both froze when they saw the card. "What? Where did you get this? This money? You didn't do anything illegal, right?" Dad became anxious. "Don't worry, I swear I won the lottery." I solemnly guaranteed it. To convince them, I dragged them to the town bank the next day. When the teller announced that long string of zeros, my parents' eyes widened like dinner plates. They stared, hands trembling, unable to speak for a long time. I smiled. "Dad, Mom, let's go spend some money." That day, the people of our town witnessed an astonishing sight. A massive flatbed truck, loaded with the town's largest flat-screen TVs, side-by-side refrigerators, top-of-the-line front-loading washing machines, and all sorts of high-end appliances I couldn't even name, paraded proudly into our village. Villagers poured out to watch, murmuring with envy, jealousy, and curiosity. The Stones hit the jackpot. "Look at that TV. It's bigger than my front door." My parents stood with their chests puffed out, wearing pride and self-satisfaction I'd never seen before. Under their proud gazes, I experienced the ultimate satisfaction of spending money and felt genuine family connection. That evening, in front of the whole family, I announced my grand plan. We're tearing down this old house and building a proper 2-story home. And that barren land on the back mountain? I'm leasing it. Dad blinked. "Leasing a mountain for what?" I grinned, flashing a mouthful of white teeth. "To raise pigs." My life of laying back was about to begin with 300 piglets. I acted immediately. The construction crew quickly arrived, the clanging sounds shattering the village's quiet. Meanwhile, I took the money and traveled across several surrounding counties, inspecting the best breeding pig farms. In the end, I carefully selected 300 lively, cute, round-bottomed Duroc piglets. I gave my farm a catchy name, the Chill Zone. Every day, I wore my cargo shorts, flip-flops, a straw hat, hum a little tune, and prepare nutritious meals for my piglets. Watching them snort and fight for their food, growing bigger every day, filled me with incredible contentment. This was way more interesting than staring at PowerPoint presentations in an office. While I was enjoying my leisure, Dustin Clark, miles away in Metro City, was having a terrible time. The more completely I vanished, the more panicked he became. He constantly felt that the sudden departure of the true heir was the calm before the storm, hiding some massive, earth-shattering conspiracy behind it. The private investigator he sent quickly brought back a report. Target subject Ethan Vance is currently in Greenfield Village, having leased an entire hillside. Occupation, pig farmer. Attached to the report was a high-definition photo. In the picture, I was wearing rubber boots, squatting in the mud, cheerfully scratching a little pig behind the ears. Man and pig, harmonious and joyful. When Dustin saw this photo, far from feeling relieved, his pupils dilated, and he sucked in a sharp breath. His mind instantly conjured up an entire season of a prince's revenge drama. A disguise. This had to be a disguise. How could he, Ethan Vance, the true heir of a wealthy family, possibly be content raising pigs? This must be him gathering strength in secret in the countryside. He wasn't raising pigs. He was building his private army. When the time was right, he would return to Metro City, leading a highly trained swine brigade to take everything from me. Dustin grew more terrified the more he thought about it, having nightmares for several nights in a row where I was riding a giant wild boar, smashing through the gates of the Clark estate. Just as he was on the verge of a mental breakdown, his #1 admirer, the dominant CEO Samantha Hayes, came to visit him. Samantha Hayes, the head of Stellar Corp, stood 5'9", exuding the aura of 6'6", but in front of Dustin, she was a complete lovesick puppy. Seeing Dustin distracted and growing thinner, her heart ached. "Dusty, what's wrong? Who is bullying you? Tell me, and I'll make them bankrupt." Dustin looked at Samantha, a look of grim determination flashing in his eyes. "No, I can't just sit here and wait anymore. I have to go see for myself. I need to expose Ethan's scheme face to face and show him that I, Dustin Clark, am not someone to be messed with." He made up his mind to ride out to my chill zone and uncover the truth. Dustin didn't dare drive his own car. He snuck out and took the most ostentatious, globally limited edition red Ferrari from his father's garage. His thought was that driving this car would use sheer presence to overwhelm Ethan and show him what true wealth looked like. Samantha Hayes learned of Dustin's movements through special channels. Thinking Dustin was off to close some world-changing deal, she didn't hesitate. She jumped into her white Maserati and followed closely behind. And so, on the country road leading to Greenfield Village, an utterly bizarre scene unfolded. A red Ferrari sped ahead, kicking up a trail of dust. A white Maserati relentlessly chased behind, making even the old oxen plowing by the roadside turn their heads repeatedly. The navigation destination, the Chill Zone Pig Farm. When a Ferrari executed a stylish drift and screeched to a halt at the pig farm's main gate, Dustin was dumbfounded. There was no grand estate before him, just a simple chain-link gate, behind which was a large muddy field. Because of a heavy rain the night before, the open area in front of the gate was now a muddy swamp. The Ferrari, with its low chassis, let out a heartbreaking clunk as half of its wheels instantly sank into the mire. It stalled. Dustin, dressed in a bespoke white suit, sat in the driver's seat, looking out at the mud outside that smelled of rustic fragrance, his handsome face twisted in shock and disgust. Samantha Hayes, trailing closely behind, slammed on her brakes when she saw the Ferrari's predicament. But it was too late. Her Maserati plowed right in after it, half a wheel getting stuck in the mud too. "Dusty!" Samantha cried out in alarm, jumping out of her car in a Chanel suit and 10-centimeter stilettos. Then, her scream pierced the sky. That beautiful, slender heel sank straight into the mud and wouldn't come out. Just then, the pig farm gate creaked open. I walked out, wearing a pair of canvas sneakers, holding a steaming basin of pig slop. Seeing this luxury car pile up, and the sight of one woman standing on one leg by the gate, I froze. Dustin, Samantha Hayes, me, 3 people, 6 eyes, stared at each other across the half-dead Ferrari and the muddy ground. The air was thick with the scent of post-rain earth, the aroma of pig feed, and a tension so thick it could be cut with a knife. Ethan Vance. Dustin was the first to break the silence. He scrambled out of the car window, one foot planted precariously on the only clean part of the door, pointing at me and yelling hoarsely. "You are here. Tell me, what exactly are you planning?" I tilted my head innocently, shaking the basin of slop in my hand. "Feeding the pigs, can't you see?" "You." Dustin was so enraged he nearly fell out of the car. Samantha Hayes, balanced on one foot with the other high-heeled, shoes still mired in the mud, tried hard to maintain her dominant CEO composure. "Ethan Vance, is it?" She pulled a black card from her purse, striking an elegant pose as if she were at a high society gala instead of a pigsty entrance. Name your price to leave Dustin's world. I looked at the black card, then at her high heel deep in the mire, and asked with perfect sincerity, "Is that card more useful than a backhoe right now?" Samantha's expression froze instantly. Just as the atmosphere reached a point of tension and absurdity, chaos erupted. A series of urgent oinks and grunts came from inside the pig pen. My heart lurched. Trouble. It was Patches. Patches is the queen of my farm, a sow weighing over 300 pounds. She had just farrowed a litter of piglets a couple of days ago and is fiercely protective, with a terrible temper. She must have smelled Samantha's perfume, strong enough to knock out a cow, and sensed a threat. With a tremendous thud, Patches, like a pink tank, burst through the loosely latched pen door, roaring as she charged out. Her body was covered in mud spatters, and her target was clear, the two impeccably dressed invaders. Dustin, who had severe mysophobia, let out a dolphin-like shriek when he saw the mud-caked behemoth charging at him. Patches clearly took him as the primary threat, lowered her head, and used her powerful snout to accurately target his pristine white suit trousers. Dustin was terrified out of his wits. Without thinking, he turned to run, but his foot slipped, and he landed squarely in the mud, instantly transforming from a Prince Charming into a mudman. "Dusty!" Samantha cried out, trying to rescue her beloved, but Patches whipped her head around, sending a spray of mud like machine gun fire all over Samantha's face and body. On my dress! Chanel became Mudnell, and Samantha also broke down. For a moment, the pig farm entrance became the setting for an epic human versus pig chase. The two pampered city dwellers were sent scrambling and squealing across the ground by an enraged sow. Finally, driven by an overwhelming will to survive, the pair scrambled and crawled their way up onto. No, they clambered onto a nearby crooked old locust tree. The scene was, for a moment, utterly ridiculous. I stood there, mouth agape, watching the two figures perched in the tree, covered in mud and clearly shaken. After a few seconds, I finally couldn't help myself. I pulled out my knockoff smartphone. I opened the video function and aimed it at the two of them in the tree. Don't worry. I called up to them kindly while recording. Patches is just a little protective of her babies. She doesn't bite. She just likes to nudge people with her nose. You two are safest up there. In the tree, Dustin hugged the trunk, shaking from fear and anger. Ethan, get this monster away from me right now. Do you believe I'll go back in? I zoomed the camera in on his handsome face, smeared with dirt and leaves. Go back and do what? Offer me another 10 million? A single sentence from me choked Dustin so badly he nearly fell out of the tree. I smiled with satisfaction and, without a second thought, uploaded this 10-second clip to the Greenfield Village Friendly Neighbors WhatsApp group. I even added a thoughtful caption. Had two distinguished guests stop by the farm. Didn't have much to offer, so I had Patches personally escort them up the tree. The message caused an instant sensation. Within a minute, the village WhatsApp group exploded. Old Man Wong from the tofu stand at the head of the village. Whoa, those city kids are wearing fancy threads, but they climb trees faster than monkeys. Antley, who raises chickens at the back of the village. Is some celebrity filming a movie here? That styling is certainly unique. In the next second, the area outside my pig farm gate became a lively spectacle. Old Man Wong arrived, carrying his shoulder pole. Antley arrived, clutching her rooster. The village children, the half-grown lads who herd cattle, all rushed over in a flurry. The scene instantly transformed from a man versus pig battle into a massive rural gossip fest. Villagers surrounded the base of the tree, pointing and laughing unabashedly at Dustin and Samantha, whose chuckles echoed frequently. Oh my, that girl's shoe is still stuck in the mud. TSK, that white suit is officially ruined. My parents were also alerted and rushed over. After a moment of shock, they burst into peals of laughter. Mom even enthusiastically encouraged the crowd. Don't be shy, everyone come see, a rare sight. In the tree, Samantha Hayes' CEO persona completely crumbled. She buried her face in her arm against the trunk, looking like she wanted to weep. Dustin's face cycled through shades of red and white. He wished he could simply disappear on the spot. Under the scrutiny of the entire village, these two pampered darlings of the metropolis experienced a complete and utter social death. It wasn't until dusk fell that I managed to coax the now satisfied Patches back into the pen with a basin of specially prepared slop. Only then did the two esteemed guests dare to climb down, trembling, from the tree. They were filthy, smelly, and entirely stripped of their former dignity. What was worse, Dustin called the towing company. The operator politely informed him after hearing the address and road conditions. "Sir, your road is too bad. Our tow truck can't get in. We'll have to wait until the road dries out tomorrow." This meant they would have to spend the night in the very village they despised. Their faces were ashen. I crossed my arms and strolled over with a smirk. "How about you two make do for the night at my place?" Dustin was instantly wary. "What kind of trick are you planning now?" I enthusiastically pointed toward the newly built, yet unfurnished two-story house in the distance. "My parents just finished building it, but the guest room isn't quite ready." I then pointed to a small shed next to it. "Or you could stay in the woodshed." "What?" Samantha shrieked. "You expect us to stay in a woodshed?" I shrugged, feigning innocence. "My parents need the guest room. You just experience the pig pen, and if you're not satisfied, you can go back to the tree. I won't stop you." The two exchanged a look, and, after a moment, humiliatingly chose the woodshed over the locust tree. For dinner, my mom kindly brought them plain white rice and stir-fried greens. Dustin looked at the coarse bowl and chopsticks with disdain and didn't touch a bite. Samantha, famished after a day of fasting, couldn't afford to worry about appearances. She snatched up her bowl and wolfed down the food, enjoying it more than anyone. The next morning, I blocked the doorway to the woodshed. "You two can't stay here for free. Today, you have to work to pay off your lodging." I assigned them tasks. Task 1, feed the pigs. As soon as Dustin reached the pig pen entrance and smelled the rich aroma, he immediately gagged and threw up. Samantha pinched her nose and dumped the entire large basin of pig slop onto the ground with a crash, causing the piglets to fall into chaos. Task 2, weed the vegetable patch. Samantha mistook the thriving chives for weeds and pulled every single one clean. My mom nearly had a heart attack watching. Task 3, chop wood. Dustin summoned his courage, picked up the axe, and imitated my dad's stance, bringing it down with force. The axe missed the log entirely, instead flying through the air in a graceful arc, finally landing with a thwack on the door of the chicken coop. The hens inside exploded in a flurry of feathers. Meanwhile, I pulled up a chair, sat in the yard, leisurely sipping the chrysanthemum tea my mom brewed, and watched the clumsy performance of these two urban infants. This was far more entertaining than any comedy show on TV. My mood was utterly delightful. This sort of rural revitalization lifestyle continued for 3 days. Dustin did little but complain and throw tantrums. Nothing pleased him. "This water tastes weird. This blanket feels damp. Ethan, are you doing this on purpose?" Samantha, however, though still clumsy, was undergoing a subtle shift in her mindset. She began to find the rhythm of working from sunrise to sunset novel. On the first day, she complained about the dirt. By the third day, she could face the muck and feed the chickens in rubber boots without flinching. In the afternoon, Old Man Wong's tractor broke down on the road, and I fixed it in a jiffy. Old Man Wong kept praising how capable I was. Samantha watched from a short distance, a strange gleam in her eyes. At dinner that night, she quietly said to Dustin, "Actually, Ethan might not be that bad. He's kind of cool." Dustin was busy battling a mosquito and sneered in response. "Cool? With all that country bumpkin aura he has? How is that cool?" For the first time, Samantha argued back. "At least he managed to get us food here, and he can fix a tractor." Dustin froze. He never expected Samantha to defend Ethan. A crack appeared between them for the first time. While internal divisions were forming between them, a much larger storm was brewing and heading toward the small village. That private investigator Dustin had hired was very diligent. He sent back the latest intel. Clark heirs stuck in the countryside, chased by pigs, forced into labor, complete with photos. When Marcus Clark and his wife saw the photos of their son, looking utterly disheveled, they completely lost it. A profound insult. Both of their good-for-nothing sons had disgraced the Clark name. One ran off to raise pigs, and the other chased a man right into a pig pen. "Get the car ready." Marcus Clark's face was dark green with rage. "I'm going to see for myself what kind of magic this backwater hovel holds." They decided to come and drag their sons home to clean up the mess. So, on the afternoon of the 4th day, a stately black Bentley, under the watchful eyes of the entire village, rolled over the newly dried dirt road and stopped steadily in front of the chill zone gate. The car door opened, and Marcus Clark and his wife, dressed in immaculate designer suits and sporting sunglasses, stepped out, flanked by a contingent of black-suited bodyguards. They immediately spotted Dustin in the yard, scattering feed to the chickens, completely covered in mud, and Samantha Hayes standing beside him, clumsily offering help. And then they saw the perpetrator, Ethan Vance, lounging in a rocking chair, casually watching the show. The Clark parents' faces instantly darkened like the bottom of a wok. "Dustin!" Marcus Clark roared, the sound startling the chickens in the yard into a flutter. He strode over, grabbed Dustin by the nose, trembling with fury. "Look at you. What kind of state are you in? You've disgraced the Clark name. Get back in the car with me now." Dustin flinched under the tirade and instinctively lowered his head. "Mrs. Clark completely ignored her son. She took off her sunglasses and scrutinized my honest, hard-working parents with a look of extreme contempt. Is it you two who taught him to be like this?" Her voice was sharp and cutting, dripping with condescending superiority. As expected, a wretched place breeds uncivilized people. The poor can never raise a proper gentleman. My parents, simple and honest their whole lives, had never faced such a confrontation. They immediately turned pale, nervously wringing the corners of their shirts. At that moment, a string snapped inside me. I stood up from the rocking chair, stepped forward, and positioned myself like a wall directly in front of my parents. The atmosphere in the yard instantly dropped to freezing point. My expression turned cold as I looked directly at those two so-called biological parents. First, my name is Vance, not Clark. Second, the way I am is thanks to my parents, and I think it's excellent. It is not your place to lecture me. I paused, then continued, each word delivered with chilling clarity. Third, your Clark family honor is worth less to me than the rear end of my pig, Patches. You, Marcus Clark's lips turned purple with rage, and he raised his hand to slap me. Just then, a figure lunged forward and forcefully blocked the space between us. It was Dustin. Everyone froze, including me. Dustin's face was flushed red as he stood up to his father's furious gaze, mustering the greatest courage of his life. He panted, glanced back at my stunned and helpless parents, and then looked at me, standing nearby. The re-education of the past few days, though it caused him physical suffering, also made him see, for the first time, a different kind of life. He saw why Ethan Vance would rather give up $10 million than stay in this dump. He looked at his parents, his voice still shaking, but unusually firm. "Ethan, he seems really happy here. Can't you just leave him alone? And leave me alone too?" This monumental declaration left the Clark parents completely frozen. Their greatest pride, their obedient, sensible heir, had publicly betrayed them. Insolence. Absolutely insubordinate. Marcus Clark was so angry he couldn't speak, pointing at Dustin, then at me, his fingers trembling uncontrollably. Mrs. Clark's face turned deathly pale. She could not accept that the product she had carefully cultivated for over 20 years was openly defying her for the sake of some country bumpkin. Fine, very good," she spat out through clenched teeth, her eyes venomous. "Neither of you step foot in the Clark estate again. And don't expect a single dime from the Clarks." After uttering these harsh words, they acted as if staying another second would be an insult. They turned and got into the car. The black Bentley, amidst the villagers' whispers, pulled away in a flurry of anger and humiliation. Quiet returned to the yard. Dustin watched his parents' cold retreat, his expression complicated, a mix of loss and confusion, but absolutely no regret. He turned around and, for the first time, looked at me without hostility. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "I was too immature before." Looking at his handsome face smeared with chicken feathers, I suddenly didn't find him so irritating anymore. I walked over and clapped him on the shoulder. "It's fine. If you ever want to experience life again, you're welcome anytime. I'll give you a 20% discount on lodging." Dustin blinked, then couldn't help but laugh too. The two exchanged a smile, and all the past grievances seemed to dissipate in that shared moment. At that moment, Samantha Hayes, who had been silent, walked over. She had long since traded her stilettos for my mom's cloth shoes and her Chanel suit for some cheap track gear from the village store. Though the ensemble was mismatched, her eyes were brighter than ever before. She handed me a business card, Stellar Corp CO, Samantha Hayes. "Mr. Vance," she looked at me, her eyes glittering with excitement. "I think your Chill Zone project has incredible potential. Shall we discuss series of funding? I personally plan to invest $50 million up front to help you develop this into a top-tier agrarian complex integrating ecological farming, rural tourism, and high-end resorts." "Me? Dustin?" I looked at her, then glanced at Patches and her babies rooting around in the pen, my expression complex. "Are you saying we should put Louis Vuitton tags on my pigs?" Samantha actually nodded seriously. "We can consider it. We could launch a co-branded line. Patches' noble series of black pork, exclusively for high society." Dustin rolled his eyes while listening from the side. He thought both of them were crazy, one even more so than the other. The towing company finally called the next day. The road had dried out, and they could come get the car. Dustin and Samantha Hayes ultimately had to leave the small village. Before leaving, Dustin changed back into his wrinkled suit. Although still looking disheveled, the look in his eyes was completely different from when he arrived. "Hey, Ethan," he said awkwardly. "If I have time, I'll come back to see the pigs." I smiled. "You're welcome anytime. Remember to bring a housewarming gift. Patches might be giving birth again." Samantha clung to my hand, clearly reluctant to leave. "Mr. Vance, please reconsider my investment plan. The market outlook is huge. I'll send my market research team over in a couple of days." I nodded vaguely, secretly hoping they wouldn't actually come. After sending off the two nuisances, my new two-story house was officially completed. My parents happily moved into the spacious and bright new home. Mom paced back and forth in the rooms a dozen times, touching this, looking at that, unable to stop smiling. I installed the fastest internet connection in the house, then settled into the rocking chair in the yard, feeling the mountain breeze, watching the piglets run all over the hills, and decided this was true heaven. However, my peaceful days didn't last long. Samantha Hayes' market research team actually arrived. A group of sharp-suited urban elites drove several SUVs, hauling all sorts of precision instruments, and descended upon the village in a grand procession. The result? Before the team could even begin their research, they were chased all over the mountain by the aggressively fighting free-range geese from Old Man Wong's place, crying for their mothers. In the end, I had to step in to rescue them from the geese's clutches. Although the process was bumpy, Samantha Hayes' influence was undeniable. After she promoted it within her high-end social circle, my chill zone ecological pork became an instant sensation. Because the pigs were fed purely on grain and raised running free across the hills, the meat was incredibly tender and flavorful. Orders began flying in like snowflakes. I was unwittingly becoming the renowned pig farming king of the region. The more money I made, the more I continued to wear my cargo shorts, lounge in my rocking chair, and drink tea every day. Occasionally, Dustin would text, complaining about how boring his company meetings were and how hypocritical the executives were, followed by a single line. "Kinda miss being chased by pigs." I would reply with a photo of the piglets crowding together to nurse, captioned, "Patches had another litter. Come back when you can bring a congratulatory gift." As for the Clark parents, they later tried to contact me in various ways, attempting reconciliation, perhaps thinking that the title of Pig Farming King sounded slightly better than Country Bumpkin. I ignored them all and blocked their numbers directly. Under the sun, with a warm breeze on my face, I watched the pigs running across the hills, listened to my parents laughing in the yard, and felt a profound peace in my heart. This was the home I wanted in both lifetimes. I comfortably closed my eyes in the rocking chair, slowly drifting off to sleep. In my dream, a chubby little piglet was gently nudging my flip-flop with its wet little nose. A tranquil life, a stable existence. That must be what this is.